All right. Good night, everybody. Welcome to Comix Asylum Live with Steve and Jay. We've been on a bit of a hiatus, but we're all back now. Now that I have been released from my movie making duties, and I'd like to welcome to the asylum Joseph Jose Bonsu and Courtney Small. How you guys doing tonight?
Amazing,
I'm doing
amazing,
well, thanks.
amazing.
And how is my partner in crime, Mr. J, doing?
It's been a long time, so I'm glad to be back and very excited to be talking about the topics tonight because a lot of things to talk about.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Um, First of all, we're going to start with Sinners. Sinners, I would say, is probably it's like the thing hitting the box office right now. I can tell you that I saw it. Okay, out of the four of us, how many of us have seen it?
Yep.
Okay, so
I've
three
heard
out of
so many
four.
good things- I've heard so many good things about it.
All right, so Jay, you're gonna jump in and you just can contribute what you've heard or what you know about it.
Sure.
I'm gonna start it off. I left the theater and my head was exploding. There was so much to download and process from that movie. It's a visual feast, great script, tour de force in filmmaking, and man, does it say a lot. It says a lot about a lot of things. And we're gonna. This is. I hope you guys don't mind. We are gonna go into the spoilers on this one. So if you haven't seen it, Jay, I'm sorry I'm ruining the
It's all
movie-going
good.
experience
It's
for
all
you.
good. I'm looking forward to it because I like the trailers alone give a certain impression, and I've just heard so many great things about it. So I'm excited. I really am. So.
All right, so we're gonna kick it off with Courtney. What are your thoughts on it?
I absolutely love the film. I, to me, Ryan Coogler has not missed yet, and this just shows that he is one of the. I'm going to say he's actually underrated as a filmmaker because Sinners is a film that came out that I know I'll say was within the Black community, a lot of people were really hyped for, but it seemed in terms of the greater movie world, people were interested, but no one was quite as hyped until Ryan Coogler did that whole film demo about the different film reels and how the film was shot. And then all of a sudden, people got really interested in the film. And I think that's also indicative of just how talented he is. Because what other filmmaker outside of Scorsese, maybe Tarantino, could talk about the process of movie making for a film that you haven't even seen yet and have a whole generation be like, oh, wait, we really got to go see this film. And not only go see it, but go see it in IMAX. And if you're lucky to see it in 70 millimeters, like people are really traveling to try and see this film, which is something that we don't normally get. And I think one of the beautiful things about Sinners and its success is I would say we haven't had a film maybe since Barbenheimer where people were enjoying the film but also discussing it on several levels. Like with Barbie, they talked a lot about is it feminist, is it not really feminist? Oppenheimer was all about, well, should we be talking about a man who was a brilliant mind but also resulted in something horrific? Whereas with Sinners, people are talking about race, gender, religion, economy, history. Like there's so many facets that people are still diving into weeks after it's been released. So I think that's just a testament to Coogler and the film itself.
And Joe, what do you think?
Man, man, I left the theater with a huge smile on my face after this movie. Like, I'm not a horror guy, but this is one of the horror films I thoroughly enjoyed. And do you even call Sinners a horror film? Obviously, there's horror elements, but there's so much more in there. Like the commentary. There's a lot of commentary as far as like watching who you let in to your space, or in this case, watching who you invite to the cookout to like oh man, to like racial identity in the South, especially in Mississippi. So there was a lot of things that were touched upon, and I loved how Ryan Coogler weaves a lot of those subjects into a vampire movie of all things. So that's, and then just the way certain things were shot, like the cinematography and certain things were amazing. Like the party, the whole like juke, the whole juke scene.
The dance scene is phenomenal.
Was phenomenal, absolute phenomenal. The cast was amazing. Like as far as like Michael B. Jordan is concerned, with his with Smoke and Stack, some of the best acting I've seen him do in like years, and he's an amazing actor. Like you look at Black Panther, you look at The Wire, you go back to like The Wire, or a couple of episodes of The Wire. Like he's fantastic in this. Like he's reached God tier with Sinners as far as I'm concerned. So
I agree with both of you. I would say when it comes to Michael B. Jordan and Ryan Coogler, they're in a groove right now. Like I think they've had enough time to kind of work together. They know how to feed off of each other, from Fruitville Station through Creed to now. They've got a lot of, I guess, like hours underneath their belt to kind of figure out what works and what doesn't work. And I don't think we've seen a synergy like this in a long, long time. Court, you're the film maven here, so you know there's like I guess Scorsese and I guess De Niro and Keitel, and so you know he was like they were working together really well. I guess who does Tarantino work with most of the time?
I think it's like usually Antonio Banderas or like,
it was like Keitel for a little bit.
Yeah,
he kind of goes back and forth.
Tarantino kind of ventures like this. Christoph Waltz recently,
right?
He had like Buscemi and you know, so I think with Tarantino, he's always found great indie actors, but then he's also had a rep for like bringing actors that you wouldn't think about. You know, like he kind of revitalized Travolta's career at one point. Robert Forster and Jackie Brown. You know, Pam Grier back to like the mainstream. If you didn't know who Pam Grier was, if you weren't following, you know, 70s filmmaking, or you weren't watching The L Word, he introduced a lot of people. Like, so that's kind of his gift, but also with his writing. But I think, yeah, I guess you could say Scorsese and De Niro, Scorsese and DiCaprio are probably the most
Spike and Denzel, maybe.
Spike and Denzel,
yeah, and you know, this is a spoiler rich look at it. Vampires are they like the preeminent monster when it comes to horror?
I would say so.
Have they dethroned zombies and whatever?
I think they're on the same tier as zombies. Because zombies, like, yo, the thing about both is that they're never ending threats. Like they'll keep coming. You'll keep infecting people, and you'll keep infecting people as zombies, and that thing will keep spreading. Same thing with vampires. You bite one person, that person comes in, you bite the next, and it just grows, right? So they're equally as dangerous.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that, you know, kind of looking at the backstory and what really makes it a rich film experience is the fact that there are a lot of vampires that aren't vampires in the film, right? When you look at how society was back then, you know, whether you have the mob element or you have how government kind of plays a role in segregation, or even how the Klan kind of sneaks into the story a little bit. There's a lot of, you know, never ending scenarios where people are basically sucking the lifeblood out of either people or economies or society as a whole.
Yeah, the term vampire really has multiple connotations now more than ever. I think people are starting to recognize how you know, vampires truly exist, but not in the traditional sense of how you know, the fictional versions of vampires have traditionally been portrayed. I mean, the idea of a soul-sucking vampire is, like if we were to, give it some sort of real world scenario, it could just be corporatism. You know what I mean? How it just sucks the life out of you as a person, and just demands, the demands that are put on you as an individual literally suck away the essence of your entire being, right? And you change, right? You actually do physically change when that gets a hold of you, right? Exactly how we're discussing it now, right? Did they establish whether or not the vampires do actually infect you just by biting you, or is it still based on a system where you have to accept becoming a vampire? Was that highlighted in the film, or
Court,
was
I'm
it just?
gonna let you take that one.
Well, it's interesting. So you do have you get turned by being bit. How they use the mythology, though, is when you are bit, you are still, everyone is kind of connected. All the vampires are essentially connected, and they're connected to the big bad guy, Remick, who's this Irish vampire. But how Remick presents himself is not like Nosferatu, where it's kind of like a fearsome demon that wants to consume. Remick presents himself as the average man. Like, I'm one of you. I've been burdened by society, just like you, the Black community, have been burdened as well. The Irish history is the exact same. We becoming a vampire means us growing together and starting our own kind of new world, becoming our own strong power. The catch is the power falls under Remick's umbrella. In many ways, as you were talking about the sucking of society, he's trying to suck the gift, in this case, music, and the power of music that comes from the Black community, and kind of co-opt it, steal from the Black culture to use it for his own gains, and then have the Black culture fall under his umbrella. So yes, you have a lot of the traditional vampire tropes, but then you add this whole other cultural aspect to it, which makes Remick a really fascinating vampire.
Yeah.
He sorry, Jake, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You make your point.
No, I just want to jump on there because, like, he's a villain and he's not a villain, right? But it's fascinating because, like, it's almost because of the way that the powers work. He's got this amazing pyramid scheme where he doesn't want to wipe you out. He just wants to use you and collect you because it makes him more powerful. And there's almost like this sense of, in a weird way, and unless I've misread it, there's almost like a sense of community that he's building as well too. But that helps to make him stronger. And it's really interesting too, because the way that he's introduced, he's in the middle of his journey when he's introduced at the beginning of the film. And we get a snippet of him being on the run. And it would be interesting to see or to know what the First Nations tribe that was hunting him down, how they figured him out, and how he got to that point, because they were onto him, without a doubt.
It killed me. It killed me how they warned that couple about Remick, and they didn't listen.
You know why, though, Joe?
Like,
let's just cut to the chase. Let's just cut to the chase. We know why.
Sure. Well, for sure, because they'll never suspect him of doing any wrong because of who he is. But
yeah. And they're not gonna trust him, especially with what was on their bed. With them being Klansmen, there's no way they're gonna listen to them.
Right. Another thing I want to bring up is besides Smoke and Stack, the main protagonist, Miles Anton's character. I forget what his name was, but he was
Sammy.
Cousin.
I mean, the guitar player? Sammy?
The guitar player.
Right.
The fact that his music attracted Remick is another thing where our music in the past, all of our art attracts them. It's always attracted them to the point where, okay, this is amazing. What can I do with this? How can I take this for my own?
Right.
And I feel like that that's where like the music and the vampirism kind of correlates, I think.
I find it fascinating
Yeah.
how different cultures view different like vampires. Like there seems to be some in every culture there seems to be some form of life sucking being
Mhm.
in many cultures, right? And it's interesting the way they're portraying this lead vampire in this film because if you guys played The Witcher, the video game, I don't know if anybody's played it, but
No.
there
Mhm.
like the second game, there's actually an expansion pack where one of the missions is to actually hunt down a vampire who basically they live by a code, right? And what happens is they eventually have to venture into the current elder vampire whose domain they're actually inhabiting. And it's fascinating because when I hear you guys talking about how the vampires are connected, right? It's the same sort of situation within the Witcher, where all of the vampires are connected by a single like master being, and he can sense you no matter where you are. And if you step outside his own moral code, if you will, he has no qualms about either taking you out or punishing you to a certain degree, and all he has to do is think about it, and like there's nothing you can do. So I find it fascinating that they're really bringing all these different aspects of vampirism in this film. I think that's fascinating, and I think it's a refreshing take on the traditional Anne Rice type of characterization. So I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, for
Mhm.
sure. Before we go ahead, I just want to acknowledge the people in the comments. So I'm going to start posting some of those. Cobra, Emperor, G.I. Joe, O-Ring Collector, Delta 17. What's up? How you doing?
How's it going, dude?
Yo, yo.
Shay Reed.
What's going on,
Hey,
Shay?
hey, hope all is well. Can we talk about Haley Steinfeld's lines? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna refer to Court and Joe on those because like they are a little bit dim, but man, her
Yeah.
character, there's so much there. And then
So
when you
much.
factor in what she realized about her own heritage through the making of the film, some really interesting things there.
Didn't she mention why that was the reason why she took on this role? Because it connected
I'm not
her.
sure, but you might be right.
Yeah, like the way part of the character and what the story can it was somewhat related to her roots or her black roots,
It's
as she
possible.
mentioned.
It's possible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I found that
Dave's
pretty.
Dimension. Hello, gents. How you doing? Welcome to the asylum. Let me see here. Cobra Emperor. I have not seen the movie or heard of it. Well,
Really? I'm
I
surprised.
would go check it out. Also, too, Court, you had mentioned about how this film had been. It's basically captured the cultural zeitgeist, right?
Mhm.
They're bringing it back into IMAX, so that tells you something, right? Like this, it's hitting a chord. And I know comic book guy, love my comic book movies, but one thing that's really refreshing is that this is an OG IP. This is just, it's not connected to anything. Now it could become a franchise, but to be an original idea and hit like it has, please, please, Hollywood, if the terrorists don't come and kill you, make more stuff like this.
Yes.
Yeah, it's always amazing when something becomes an archetype. You know, what I mean, when something like becomes another Matrix. Because I remember when the Matrix really broke ground and no one had ever seen anything like it.
Yeah.
It was just eye opening and it changed the way cinematography was made, and it changed the way people thought about movies at the time. It made science fiction sexy. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
was something where it was able to almost exist in the Academy without embarrassing the Academy. You know what I mean? Like that type of idea that it really broke the boundaries on that kind of situation, right? And this has the capacity to make horror into something that the Academy can definitely look at and say, hey, you know what, this is something that can really bridge a lot of the types of traditional concepts of filmmaking to what we're into now in the 2020s. You know what I mean? It's fascinating how things change and where we are today.
No, most definitely. Let's take a look at Andrew Davis. Cut the BS. Best freaking movie out right now.
Oh, I agree.
I don't think you're going to get any argument from anyone here. Totally agree. Let's go. Let's go down a little bit for.
I will say while you're
Yeah,
checking
David,
the comments, I find the IMAX thing fascinating because they're taking Thunderbolts out after 2 weeks,
Right.
bringing back in Sinners, but then you still have Mission Impossible coming up, right? So I'm wondering, is this going to be a weird summer where Sinners kind of leaves and then comes back and then leaves and comes back? Like,
That's a good question. I think it's basically going to come down to economics and if it can justify the need. Because I know that I was trying to figure out an IMAX time to see it, and I saw it in standard. But it basically was like 12:30 on a Thursday afternoon was the last one, and it had been maybe in theaters for like a week and a half. It hadn't been like it wasn't in there for a month. It was kind of there and came and went. And I was kind of disappointed because I wanted to see it in IMAX. And thinking about some of those scenes, especially the dance scene, seeing that in IMAX, let's just say I'm going back.
That scene was incredible.
Yeah. Andrew Davis, I've seen it 4 times. Go and watch it, David. 4 times, Andrew. Well, I want to hear some of your comments then, if you've seen it 4 times.
Well, he's got a pretty good comment around 10:30. And
let me flip to it. Haley Steinfeld stole the movie like Michael B. Jordan did in Black Panther.
For if you don't get no. Right.
Yeah.
But one thing I'll mention is what I loved what Ryan Coogler did was the deal was this whole deal behind Sinners. Like the fact that he's the first director to like strike a deal, that type of deal with Warner Brothers for this type of film. Like I don't think anybody else has done that. Well, who else?
Tarantino has a similar one, or at least had a similar one.
Tarantino did.
Yeah. But let me tell you, for a minute it caused some heat because the fire that was going through all of the industry rags were like, it's the end of the studio system, right? Mm-hmm. You can't give the talent back their movie because everything's about keeping the catalog. Right. And even Coogler said, it's not going to be for every film. It's for this one. This is like a legacy film.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that interview and I was fascinated by it. I was actually shocked that they gave him the rights. I was literally like, I was like, how can they do that? I mean, it's such a successful film. But did they give it to him before the film was so successful?
It was part of the deal. It reverts back in 25 years.
That is so fascinating. So a lot of people were just literally kicking themselves at that point, given the second guess kind of situation, right? Because I guess it's when you think about it, it parallels Star Wars in a lot of ways because it's Star Wars. The studios had no interest at that time about merchandising. They figured merchandising rights, who cares? Nobody buys Burton merchandise from movies, right? Little did they know that Lucas was one of those crazy guys who says, I'm going to make every single character ever from the Star Wars universe. This guy, the guy who freaking Coke in the back. You know what I mean? Like that was what he did. And all of a sudden, all these kids are eating it up like crazy. Like everybody's buying every single version that they can get, And it really did start that whole trend. And then he was licensing it to everybody who could afford one. What was it? Blankets, coffee mugs, like doggy collars. You know what I mean? It literally, he just went crazy and that's when they realized that is the sweetest plum. You know what I mean? That alone will fuel his empire from now until actually it's still going today. Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? Like it's absolutely insane. I think Shay has a really good comment at 10:30.
How do you feel about a Sinners universe?
Yeah. Like
it's ripe to be explored, to be honest with you. There's so much that happens because the beauty of the story is it takes place over the span of a day. Is it even 24 hours, guys? I'm not sure. Right?
I think it's 24 hours.
Right. But then there's and you see the way that I think with this film is there's so much information and there's so many characters, right? You have like the Asian family. You've got Cornbread. You've got the preacher, right? Like there's so many different things. Haley Stanfield's character, you've got and what her mother means to Smoke and Stack, and then even Smoke and Stack's father, right?
Yeah.
And when you think of the title, no one's clean in this movie.
Everybody's
because everybody sins. Yeah. So people break their marital vows. There's murder. There's theft. There's a scene at the end which kind of rivals the end of Breaking Bad in terms of like what the F is going on here, and then a little bit of cathartic kind of justice for what happens in the film. And so no one's coming in here clean. They're no, I guess, white shirts to say, for example. But what then happens to everybody, it's not necessarily justified. It's just part of being part of the world, where you're sometimes going to get caught up in other people's shrapnel, and it could be the death of you.
Yeah. Most definitely.
If you had to pick a character who is kind of like the biggest sinner, Court, who would you pick?
It's funny. I would argue, I guess, the biggest sinner is Smoke / Stack, because we're led to believe that they got the money to set up this whole juke joint by doing some shady dealings in Chicago and possibly double crossing the mob over there
with Capone and stuff.
Yeah. And then there's a scene where Smoke literally shoots someone in the middle of the street, of a busy street, trying to steal some items from his truck. So he's got a very.
But he does give good advice to the girl that was watching the truck. So he
does, and I mean they also I guess have like a military background.
They fought,
but it sounds like there was a lot of. Yeah, so there was a lot of killing there as well. So I would say that they probably have the most sin coming in. Sammy is the one who I guess most reflects the audience, in the sense that we're kind of coming into this film pure, and then we are thrown into this seedy world with a lot of sex, some drugs, some drinking, and a lot of violence that erupts because of it. So it's an interesting facet that they make everyone sinners, because I would even argue the Asian couple, and I would even argue Grace, who's been the topic of a lot of discussion, the wife in that couple, she is very much out for her family, but also out for the dollar. She's willing to ignore that there's a man bleeding in the street because Smoke is going to pay her enough money to like pack him up. Like she doesn't care what caused certain things as long as she gets hers, right? So like there's no real character outside of maybe the daughter who's pure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I can agree with that. I'm going to give you a Haley Stanfield line. You've been robbing banks and trains. You can't take this for one night.
Oh, yeah. I love that. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You just put that man in his place. Oh my goodness.
Hey,
Yeah.
So I'm curious what your thoughts are on this, because when the Matrix came out, it's actually quite fascinating how little advertising there was on the first Matrix. It really was one of those movies where they sort of showed you glimpses of what was possible, but they didn't really give you too much. As a matter of fact, a lot of the Matrix was just the data shower
It was
right?
horrible.
That's pretty much all they showed. They showed glimpses of Morpheus, talking a little bit, and they showed that one scene where Carrie-Anne Moss, does the roundhouse kick, right? And I
Yeah.
think they also showed a little bit of bullet time, but for the most part, it was so ambiguous. You really didn't know what the heck was going on. Unfortunately, with today's sort of social media, social media, and the way the Hollywood machine is in terms of like trying to get guaranteed sales and all that, they sort of had to give a little bit more than they should, which I think they should have, where they showed you that it was a vampire film. But if you were to just come in not understanding, not even knowing, or not even hearing about it, and you start watching the film, it's my understanding that for the first act, and maybe even part of the second act, you actually don't understand that there are that anything's about to go down in terms of what it is. You're being led down this wonderful story about people's lives, a couple of brothers who maybe got away with quite literally murder at one point, and got some money, are putting together a juke house, and are trying to give back to their hometown, if you will, right? But then as things develop, you start learning more about character development with other characters, and you start learning about the town is not as innocent as they once thought. And then all of a sudden, that one night when everything's supposed to be a celebratory idea, they invite the wrong people in, and everything goes. Do you think it would have had the same impact if you didn't know that there were vampires involved from the trailers? Like, would it have really given way more of a shock factor on that? Kind of like when you get revealed to what the Matrix is on the first viewing.
I think it would have. I think it would have had the same impact, even more so.
Yep.
Like I know for me, I loved being surprised when I watch a film. This is why even with Sinners, I avoided all the trailers and previews and whatnot. Just came in fresh because, yeah, it was advertised as a vampire film, but I came in fresh, saw a period piece, but then it took this hard left into this vampire movie, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is insane. So I think it would have had the same effect, even more, even a bigger one than what we've gotten in the theaters. So
yeah, which is the way I experienced the Matrix, because I remember I never heard about it. It was like already weeks into it, and again, a lot of people start saying you got to watch it, and then I asked, well, what is it? And they said, no, you need to find out for yourself, right? And I think that was a huge thing for the impact that it actually gave you, as and I think that's probably what. It's unfortunate that in today's day and age, you have to like the studios feel that they need to give you more information than is quite necessary. You know what I mean?
Trailers dropping soon, or trailers coming soon, or whatever. I think it was the same thing. They did the same thing. The same thing with the Matrix. They also did that with Kill Bill. Come to think of it, you had little snippets of what Kill Bill was, of Kill Bill, but you didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There are certain films where they've tried their best to hide the surprise. You know what I mean? Like, or some trailers these days, like Marvel trailers, sometimes they give you a false narrative.
They shoot stuff that doesn't show up in the movie. I'm still waiting for that scene where they're all running in Wakanda.
Yeah.
Where the Hulk's running.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Like if anybody hasn't seen it yet, Thunderbolts, which surprised the hell out of me. Yeah, Thunderbolts, which surprised the hell out of me. And again, no spoilers on this one, but I was like, "Whoa, that was crazy!" Like right in the first, right in the first act, I was like, "Whoa, holy crap!" And it was a bit of a disservice to some fans, but at the end of the day, it was like, "Dang, that just went down." Right? So
I think Marvel is the best with misdirects.
Yeah, but it's less misdirects.
They lie, Joe. They lie. It's not a misdirect. They lie.
They do lie. I think that's actually what it is.
So you're talking about this film and how it's marketed, or how it was marketed. To me, it's kind of from dusk till dawn, right?
That's what a lot of people are saying.
But with the same director.
Yeah.
But no, this is what I mean. It's one type of film until you get to a certain point, right? And then it's kind of like that second act, third act, middle of second, where then you go full into the horror. But like, if for some reason the theater broke down halfway between that reveal in both those films, you would think one would be a Prohibition era, Deep South drama, crime drama, and the
Mhm.
other one you think would be like a late 2000s neo-noir heist film, right?
Yeah.
And so I can't remember any of the marketing from Dusk Till Dawn. I just remember being in the theater going, holy crap, what the hell, what this turn is crazy.
It was kind of the same thing for me when I watched Drive for the
Oh,
first
right,
time.
right.
Yeah.
Drive, you think it's like this cool, slick, like drama with Ryan Gosling, but then you get to that elevator scene, and then the whole movie goes left, and it just
Yeah.
becomes like this bloody revenge, actioner. Like you gotta
Yeah.
love it. Like
Yeah. And Court,
I
getting
think
back to,
I'm
sorry, go ahead.
I'm gonna be the weird. Sorry, I was gonna say I'm gonna be slightly opposite to you both because I'm very much anti trailers giving away the goods, giving away the whole movie. I would argue there were certain Thunderbolt trailers that gave away way too much. But what I think selling this as a vampire film is the best way to do it because you're going to attract a wider audience just in general. If you sell it as like a kind of Prohibition era type drama, you may not get like the horror crowd, whatever. But I think the real surprise for a lot of people is they go in expecting a vampire film and vampire craziness, and yes, it is kind of like From Dusk Till Dawn, where it draws out the character stuff before you get to the vampires. What I think is getting people really excited is that first half is really fascinating. We talk about the dance sequence, we talk about the characters, like people get really drawn into the characters, where I would argue From Dusk Till Dawn, you don't really get that attached to the brothers or any of the people. You get attached to them when they're all trying to get out of the situation. But here, you're connected to a lot of even the side characters. You feel like you know them. So when things go down and people have to make decisions, and they're literally like, there's a line between them. There's the door. There's on one side the vampires, one side the people that are, trying to stay alive. You feel the connection, you feel that push and pull that some of the characters have. So I think the real surprise is not that, oh, it's a vampire film and one of the brothers becomes a vampire. It's everything that leads up to it. I don't think people were expecting to get such a rich type of film.
And I think that's why it works. I totally agree with you, because one of the things that you kind of run into when you have an ensemble like this, especially when you have certain kind of set pieces, there's not enough time for characterization. So you have a lot of like cardboard cutouts, archetypes almost, but like just a cornbread, man. Cornbread.
Yeah, right. Like,
and you know who got cornbread in trouble? His woman. He didn't want to go.
yeah.
And it was like, you better go. And it's like, yeah, your fate sealed, right? And then I'm gonna go to Andrew, who has a great comment here. Pauline's one of the singers that ended up with Sammy, accused Smoke of being immoral, and the reason why the devil came, and she wasn't innocent at all because she hooked up with Sammy,
right.
Mm-hmm. And Sammy was kind of like, hey, I know your situation. It was funny that, and it was really interesting too, because it wasn't the guys that were pressing for any kind of sexual relations. They were the ones who were not the aggressors, right? So it was really interesting how they played with all these different kind of dynamics and made the characters real. And I think that's why this resonates, because everyone can kind of empathize or connect to a lot of the characters. Mm-hmm. And also what the characters went through, like what the brothers had to go through with an abusive dad, right? That put them on the road to being able to kill without any kind of remorse, because it's survival. And I guess it's sinners and survival, because a lot of this is trying to survive, whether it's within the confines of an unjust society, or being alone, or trying to make money, or dealing with racism and oppression. Like there's so like this story, this story can be broken down and analyzed 10 different ways without even getting into the supernatural, or even how every culture is connected through the supernatural, and cultures that you wouldn't think have any connection, but through the music, right? You have these conduits to other worlds that are connected through song.
And you see it through Sam.
Yeah.
When Sam plays, you see the different eras pop up. I thought that was really cool. Like you see everything from like the Afro-Western, East African dancing to like
the Chinese dancer,
the Chinese
right?
dancer, hip hop.
First Nations dancers.
Yeah.
There's so much where it's like we're so different. And in a way, this gets back to the villain. Because once you're a vampire, you're all the same, right?
Yeah.
And in a way, through the musical scene, we're all the same.
We are.
With slight differences.
Yeah. I really enjoy the concept that a lot of movies are employing this technique where if you really break it down, the movie could be a drama. As you said earlier, Steve, the movie could easily become a drama at any point. You know what I mean? It could be a drama, it could be a period piece. But it misdirects you so well that you don't even like. Again, if as Joseph said, that if you didn't know you were coming into a vampire movie, this would hit you so hard. It would just basically throw you for a complete loop. And it could easily be a drama, it could be a horror. It could, like horror is probably the furthest thing from your mind until the very, the final act, right, where everything just the crap hits the fan and everybody's fending for themselves, right? But it also is a study in human behavior and human nature, right? What do you do when you're pushed to a corner? Who will you protect? I really do love films like The Road. You know what I mean? Where post-apocalyptic films, where the true nature of humans really, really comes out. Does it matter if you're a man or a woman? If you're just food at the end of the day, you know what I mean? And that seems to be a really common theme in these things, because when you come down to it, right? If you are faced against a common enemy, but again, it's you versus the world, everybody for themselves. Like, where does your humanity go? Right? Where is your sense of survival at that point? Like, who is it that you're most willing to protect, or are you just out for self-preservation? I think that's a fascinating look at how people behave, and movies like this really highlight that kind of concept. So I think it's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah,
This film feels very much like a precursor to what would happen later on in The Road. That's a great film to pull, because you see in this Mary Haley Steinfeld's character believes, because of her whiteness and because she can kind of straddle two communities, that she can talk to Rennick and his Irish friends at the beginning and try and hustle them, not realizing that she's about to become prey to a much bigger foe than she ever anticipated. But even in her status in this film, where she's kind of like, oh, I've got a husband, I've got all these different things, she still feels that she has enough clout to pull a fast one on these strangers, simply because they're white, I'm white presenting, it'll be fine. And again, that opens the doorway to all this chaos, right? Like, often society's fall usually happens in these type of films with people who think that they can outgame whatever the monster or real foe is.
Yeah, for sure. And I think looking for that edge, and I'm going to go back to Andrew, another comment that Andrew has here. Cornbread's wife got turned on by what Stack said. It's like, I think it's a Glenn Fry song from back in the 80s. The lure of easy money has a very strong appeal, right? And once you start kind of thinking that you are invincible, it leads you down a different road. And it's funny because, Court, you mentioned Haley's character. It also reminded me of the scene in Get Out where the girlfriend is tearing a strip off the cop, right? Because of her status and her whiteness and all that kind of stuff. And it's amazing how, and you see it in every kind of movie, superhero movie, whatever, where when you think you have the power dynamic in your favor, you're gonna use it to your advantage.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part,
happening in real life.
Yeah, it's life.
Look
it's
at
life.
look
We
at
see
what's
it every day.
Well, look at what's his name that's on trial right now. Like,
which one? Be specific, 'cause I'm not sure you're talking about.
Diddy. Look at Diddy. He thought he was invincible.
Right.
Look what happened. Right.
Yeah.
It's the power, like the lure of celebrity supposedly empowers you, but it also gets you in trouble at the same time.
Absolute power corrupts, for sure.
It's definitely the power that one has over over others, right? Because that's really what it was for him. It wasn't about the sex. It wasn't about the money. It was about being able to tell somebody, do this, right? And they did it, right? Because of the fear, right? The fear of the power that he commanded in, and the I guess the dirt he had in everybody, right? Cameras everywhere, just being able to just say, I can end you. Not the way you might think, but I can totally end you, right? And then in some ways he did end people just the way you thought he would. You know what I mean? Like, it was, again, just absolutely monstrous, right? And vampires do exist in real life, right? I mean, that's a clear-cut example
metaphorically
of a sinner truly being a vampire, right? I mean, like, real world examples, right? So
throughout this,
go ahead, Court.
Oh, I was just going to say, throughout this film, to tie into what you were both saying, and the last audience comment, money is the key that everyone thinks will give them the powers that they seek. Like, there's characters, even there's a sequence at the end, which Steve alluded to, which is it's satisfying to watch. But even in that scene, which is a really violent scene, there's a character who thinks he can still buy his way out of it. Right? Like, money is at the beginning. Money is what they use to get the barn for the juke joint, which might have come from illegal means. And throughout, they entice Cornbread's wife by saying, "Come work for us. We got this money." Delta Slim, played by Delroy Lindo, wonderful performance, great alcoholic musician.
Easy.
But and he's like, you guys don't have the money. I got a stable job. And they say, no, and they flash some cash. We'll pay you a lot of money just for this one night. And then if you like the place, we'll pay you this moving forward. Again, money is the thing that lures everyone essentially to their fate, right?
And also, in some cases, and it's on full display in this movie, allows people to turn a blind eye to some really heinous people, right? As long as I'm going to get my bag, I'll make a deal with the devil, right? And Sammy kind of, like, if you look at it from like his father's point of view, he's like Robert Johnson, right? Went down to the crossroads, right? Making a deal with the devil to play the devil's music. Mm-hmm. And so everybody, and what's he seeking? Not because you could just play. He could have played guitar in the church, but he was seeking his own fame and fortune by playing in the juke joint.
The classic music industry tale. You know what I mean? You signed that contract without reading the fine print. You, unbeknownst to you, you've signed your soul to the devil.
True that. We've really delved into Sinners pretty well, but because we're talking about vampires, I want to turn it a little bit. Without naming Sinners, what are some of your all-time favorite vampire movies? We'll start with Court.
A couple that came to mind for me. One was Ganja and Hef. I know Spike Lee did a remake of it, which is not good. But if you watch the original, really great vampire film, I believe it was from the 70s.
It's the 70s, the 70s movie.
Yeah, and it, you've got this love story between this couple, and one of them, the man is turned into a vampire, and he's in love with Hef, and the whole thing is like, will he turn her? Will he succumb to his charm? I really like that one. A more recent one, Let the Right One In. I would say the original version. The American one is actually a solid remake, but it's a really great film that this little boy who's being bullied becomes friends with this girl who just happens to be a vampire. And it's this weird kind of kinetic friendship between them while also being a really chilling vampire film. So those were two that jumped to mind for me. And then I'll throw in a comedy, What We Do in the Shadows, the film
Taika
version.
Waititi.
I haven't watched the full series, but again, vampires don't always have to be scary. Sometimes they can be funny. Like, you know, one of the things I like about genre is when people play with expectations, and kind of turn it on their head. So I'll give those three to start.
What about you, Joe?
Just two that come to mind. I'm pretty sure a third one will come, but the first two that come to mind, one is Lost Boys.
Yeah.
The Lost Boys.
Old school classic. Old school classic.
Listen, that's been like, from time, that's been like my Halloween. Like,
that's your Halloween joint, right? Your Halloween joint?
Yeah. That's it. It's like just the time, like, I'm very big on the 80s, so just the time itself was pretty cool. Just the story of like, it's like your coming of age story, but then you mix it in with like the vampires, and talk about misdirects. Like, you would never suspect that the boys, the mom's boyfriend was the head vampire of all those punks. So that was pretty. I always thought that was pretty cool, and the fact that the grandpa knew about the vampires, that was pretty dope. And then like Blade, obviously, the first two Blade movies, to me, come off as like some of my favorite vampires. However, thinking back to the Blade films, I kind of wish they went with like comic book Blade instead of like the half human, half vampire Blade.
Right.
Like, that was don't get me wrong, it was cool. The concept of him being a half vampire was cool, but I just find like the classic UK Blade was even better. The fact that he was a human that was immune to the vampire's bite. But no, the first two movies, especially Guillermo del Toro's Blade 2, amazing films. Yeah.
I guess you can't beat the rave scene in Blade 1 too. That's
yeah. Anytime that music drops, that scene comes to mind, right? So
what about you, Jay?
You know what? Honestly, I'm a bit of a my vampire tastes go all over the place. One vampire film I really enjoyed, which is it's more of a satire than really a vampire film. It's Sundown. I don't think a lot of people even know what that is.
I don't think I'm not familiar with it.
It stars it has several stars. It has an ensemble cast, but the two that stick out for most people recognizing things, Bruce Campbell is in the film. Yeah. And David Carradine. It's basically about a town that's in the middle of nowhere. It's set in kind of modern, not exactly modern day, but you know, it's more modern than anything. And the vampires there are just like trying to exist. And what happens is people just kind of stumble into the town, and it ignites a vampire war, where some vampires just want to live out, you know, what remaining lives they have, while others want to just go and feast on human beings. And what happens is we see how David Carradine's character eventually repents for his kind's sins, right? And one thing leads to another. Let's just say that, and it's just one of these. It's kind of like a horror comedy kind of situation. But of course, anything with Bruce Campbell, you know, it's going to be a fun ride, right? So that's definitely one of the ones. And again, it's just this campy film that I watched as a kid, and I really did enjoy it. I think everybody, you know, really enjoyed Interview with the Vampire. You know, a very huge, you know, kind of like lore aspect of what a lot of people take as canon for vampire lore these days. I always thought that was a really good film, and you know, I really enjoyed the performances by both Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise. I thought it was a great film overall. And of course, one of my favorite though, a little bit more recent, I guess recent in so much that it's only a couple of years ago. Underworld. I really enjoyed Underworld. I thought it was a great new take on vampire lore. Um, this whole idea of the vampires versus werewolves dynamic, which has always been around, and showcase the idea that the vampires were the werewolves were once slaves of the vampires, and then basically because of one act, right? It changed the entire dynamic of the entire underworld, which is exactly what it was. And then most recent, which I really actually enjoyed, was just because again it was just one of those things that I really enjoyed when they turn lore upside down on its head. I really enjoyed Abigail. I thought Abigail was hilarious. I thought
Abigail was surprisingly
I
good.
thought it was good.
That's actually on my honorable mentions list.
It was really good. I really enjoyed it, and I thought, wow! Like when I went in there thinking this is gonna be your standard ho hum vampire film, and boy, did that just like it went nuts, and it was just so refreshing, seeing all the whole story play out, and much like Sinners, you really do see the human nature come out, and how people really act, and the character development in the film, especially that scene where she just breaks down everybody's, like, she's like, I can read people like a book, and literally she did, and broke everybody down to this and this and this, and said, yeah, this is exactly what you are. This, and she won that dollar or whatever it was they were betting for. So it was a really refreshing take on the vampire lore. So I thought it was great.
Okay, good. All great choices. Two of mine have already been mentioned. I think probably for me, Let the Right One In is probably my favorite. There's just something I liked about. I didn't enjoy the North American remake as much as I enjoyed the original. I actually have it on DVD. There was just something about the subtlety of the. I think it was Swedish. I think it was a Swedish film, and just the way they shot it, the violence was very understated, but still, it hit home. And you're right, Court. There's the dynamic between the two leads, the boy and the young girl, were great. I enjoyed 30 Days a Night. I thought that was a lot of fun. That was an interesting twist with the I guess the setting, because they're all in darkness for whatever that town was. That was a lot of fun. And then I enjoyed From Dusk Till Dawn. That's one of my faves as well too. I'm trying to think if there's another one. I liked The Hunger when I was younger. That was I think that was a Susan Sarandon flick from back in like the mid 80s. I'm not sure if David Bowie was in it or not. But there were some that I was looking forward to that totally disappointed me, like Vampire New York. I think that was the Eddie Murphy one, which was absolutely terrible. And there've been some terrible vampire movies. And speaking of a recent one other than Abigail that I enjoyed, because I'd never watched Bram Stoker's Dracula, I watched Nosferatu, the 2024 version. It was good. Like, it was pretty good. And then I ended up watching Bram Stoker's. I'm like, isn't it the same movie? And yeah, essentially, because they are, like, I guess the movie Nosferatu from 1922 is based off of the novel, but they made slight changes. So it's essentially the same story. Yeah. With that being said, would you say that we are in a golden age of horror right now?
I would say so. I'd definitely say so. I think we're finally out of the hokey phase of horror, and it's now in a place where it can be taken seriously. Like, you have, like, even on top of Sinners, like, you have like your Megans, and then Megan was nuts. Megan 2.0.
Courtney is waiting for 2.0.
Yeah.
Yes, I am.
That trailer is something else, man.
I know. But like some of the Blumhouse stuff that's coming out, all the top of Sinners, and then with like past films like Get Out and Us, like we're finally in it when it comes to, we're finally in a good place when it comes to horror. So I'm looking forward to what's next.
What do you think, Courtney?
I honestly think that we've kind of been in the golden age for a while now, but I think mainstream audiences and studios are finally realizing it. Horror is one of those genres that I enjoy, but I have friends who are far more well versed, and they're always giving me recommendations about stuff, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that came out. There's
Mhm.
and they've been giving me recommendations for a while now, and like at least good 5, 6 years of really cool stuff. And I think last year in particular, there was so many that came out that were box office hits. You had Long Legs, which I was also on, Smile 2, which I really loved, and I thought the first one was just all right. Like there was, even Nosferatu, I wasn't as big of it on it as you were, Steve, but I did appreciate the overall look and aesthetics of it, and the fact that they shipped in over like 300 rats or something just so that they could
It was
make the
crazy.
scene real. And I'm like, why don't you just use special effects? Like, I don't know if I would want to be on a set with 300 rats rolling about, but that's just me. But I do think that horror films for so long, have been making a lot of money, and they're so, for the most part, cheap to make. Barbarian. I don't know if you've seen Barbarian, but
Barbarian's
great film
great.
that cost next to nothing, made a lot of money, and I think general audiences outside of horror fans are now starting to realize, hey, there's a lot of really cool, interesting horror films. I think it's just taken a while. I think everything goes through waves. I think a lot of audiences were caught up in the Marvel everything of cinema. And now, because there's been 34, 37 odd films, they're kind of like, we want something different. And horror's offering that.
Yeah. What do you think, James?
I'll be honest with you. I think that horror, as mentioned by Courtney, that at one point it was the golden goose for a lot of filmmakers because they're cheap to make. If you're talking about slasher films, right? It's just like back in the 80s, it literally was just Michael Myers chasing you for 90 minutes. And you're hiding in every possible nook and cranny of a small house. You know what I mean? But it's all about that suspenseful drama, right? That keeps you on your edge, that keeps you on the edge of your seat. And I think that's really how it was easier for filmmakers with just some shrill music, dark, really really dark scenes. So you didn't really need a gaffer. You know what I mean? You sort of just had a few small potlights and you were good. And you could really just capture that essence, that primal fear. But I think that now filmmakers are really learning from international films and other sources to understand really what makes horror films absolutely frightening and terrifying. I think that the Japanese really at one point were some of the masters of horror. Psychologically,
Yes.
there are a couple of films, Korean films, which are
Korean
absolutely
horror is great.
just you don't sleep because it's something else in your mind. Like it's just in the back of your head thinking that can happen to you. You know what I mean? Like that could absolutely 100% happen to you. And it's that kind of horror that really has been a sleeper for a long time. And now filmmakers are using those techniques and bringing them in narratively and thematically, right? And just bringing it all together. And now, as you said, the golden age of horror might be upon us. But just as Courtney has said as well, and Joseph, we're all looking at the fruits of the filmmakers who came before us. And now we're finding that horror is becoming more sophisticated and more consumable by general audiences now. And even people who don't like horror can find something in them. Like again, psychologically, thrillingly, cinematographically, right? There's a lot to take in and a lot to appreciate about. Because most people literally thought at one point, much like sci-fi and fantasy, that horror is just a one trick pony. Right, it's a little bit of music, a little bit of lighting, and a killer who can't be stopped. Right, like that was how that came about. And then what's it called? What's it called? Silence of the Lambs. All these thrillers that just sort of made you think first, right? And then you had Seven, and which technically wasn't really horror. The beautiful thing about Seven was that you only saw the aftermath. You never really saw the act. And I thought that was a really powerful storytelling medium, that you saw what happened at the end, and you didn't even get to see how he did it or why he did it. And at the end, there was a twist, and that twist was just absolutely, mind blowing. And I thought that really was a really great. Unfortunately, that's a thriller, not really a horror. There's a there are fine lines between everything, right? But it easily could have become a horror if they decided to include just a little bit more. So yeah, I think we definitely are. If we're not at the golden age, we're at the precipice of something great, and I think that's amazing.
Yeah, like I agree with it with all of you, because I'm not a huge horror fan, but obviously, grew up in the Halloween times, Friday the 13th, and then we went into like this Rob Zombie. Was it Rob Zombie where it was almost like shock horror phase?
Yeah.
Which for my delicate soul was a bit much.
Yeah.
And then you got Blumhouse, and then you get some A24, and it's kind of funny. You hear, is it an A24 kind of film? Like Midsommar and stuff like that, where you're watching it, stuff happens, and you're kind of cursing, going, "What the hell am I watching?" kind of stuff. But it's not where people are being dismembered or whatever. It's like it's building up. It's showing, but not telling or whatever. It's the suspense. And then these weird acts, either by individuals or supernatural force or the combination of such, which really draws you into the story. And then you're actually horrified by the entire canvas, as opposed to just one act or by a force of nature. And so you can get your visceral kicks in horror with a lot of stuff. I know, Courtney, would you consider The Purge horror of a sorts?
Yeah, I would put it as horror. I'm one of the rare people that really enjoy those films, acknowledging that they're not great, but I love the premise of it. Yeah, and I think a lot of it's because, similar to we were talking about The Road earlier, films where society crumbles for whatever reason, even if it's just for a 24-hour period, I find fascinating, because you kind of see what mankind really is in many ways. Once you take away all the niceties, when things hit the fan, there's people that will look out for others, and there's going to be people that are just out for themselves. And when those two collide, it's going to be very messy. So yeah, I would consider The Purge horror.
Right. And so stuff like that, all the way up to Nope, Get Out. I would even consider Him, which is a new film. It's Jordan Peele produced.
Yeah.
Centered on football, right? That's going to be a horror film. If it isn't, I would be surprised. But it's what makes you feel unsettled that I think is horror, right? Mm-hmm. And you can go all the way back to when was 79 when Alien came out.
Oh yeah.
The first Alien's a horror film, right? It's a monster in the house. The second one's an action, it's kind of like Arnold Schwarzenegger inspired thing. But as long as you take the elements and then you have the characters in a situation where you care about them, and it's dark or foreboding, and then things play on your mind because you don't know what's going to happen next necessarily, that's all that matters. That's good horror as far as I'm concerned.
All right. Speaking of Schwarzenegger, I can consider Predator a horror movie. Like,
yeah, to a degree, for sure.
Yeah, like that they're in like a darker jungle.
Yeah, that's Monster in the House. The house is a jungle. So absolutely,
it becomes an action film at the end.
Yes,
but the stalking and the anticipation of the kill and those elements were definitely 100%. When I first watched it as a kid, it terrified me. You know what I mean? Like just in the same way the first Alien film terrified me, right? But I think that there's also levels of horror now, right? Oh, totally. You have your gore horror like Saw, you know what I mean? And Human Centipede, where they're just disgusting scenes.
Human Centipede,
yeah, which totally turn people off. But there's just a fascination about these types of things. You know what I mean? Where it really does, give you again this primal nature of what is possible. And of course, Courtney brought it up. Like I also prefer the idea of society breaking down okay, maybe I should rephrase that. I enjoy when I see fictional aspects of when society breaks down and people are, which is why I think the Walking Dead does so well.
Oh, totally.
And why it's lasted as long as it has, because it does show how humans, will resort to violence and self-preservation, but there are other good aspects of humans which will band together and protect each other. And to a certain degree, Mad Max is another example of that, where there are those who prey and those who protect, right? So it's the post-apocalyptic idea is just absolutely fascinating. And I think Heath Ledger as the Joker really said it quite well. The world is only as good. People are only as good as the world allows them to be, right? When the chips are down, civilized people, they'll eat each other. And I truly believe that type of way. When he said that in the film, I was like, dang, that's actually, I believe that. I believe that wholeheartedly, right?
Yeah.
It reminds for gas or resources.
For sure. It reminds me of a Daredevil line. I think it was in the Netflix version, and I think it's from the comics too. Joe, you might can back me up or correct me on that. Where he was comparing himself to Punisher, and he says he's one bad day away from being Punisher, right?
Yeah. I remember he said that in season 2.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it's just kind of like the lives we have are built on a house of cards. And I think we are watching in real time how delicate what we have is. And sometimes these films are a harbinger. Sometimes they run alongside to kind of give you an idea of, what it's like out there for some people, but in an escapist and in a fantastic kind of setting. But the reason why they resonate is because they're pretty much linked to the human experience and the human condition.
Yeah. And it's fascinating the way comics is picking up on these ideas too, right? Because we're seeing books like the latest, like that Batman series, where what if Batman just decides to start killing people? Like, man, what if
the man who laughs or whatever?
Yeah. Or the one where he's got a big axe on his chest, right?
Oh, absolute.
Yeah. And he just decides, to be judge, jury, and executioner. You know what I mean? Red Sun. You
can argue. I didn't think about it that way, because it is kind of like apocalypse inspired, but the Absolute Universe is kind of a horror version of the DC universe.
Yeah, it is a reverse of everything that we, and I think that's the whole point. It's made to make us question, the real moral implications of what it is to be a superhero, right? Quote unquote, right? Like, where do you draw that line, right? Like, and as you said earlier, that question has come up multiple times in different formats, right? Like, Alfred Pennyworth once said that, revenge is a pit, right? And it's deep and it's dark, and Bruce Wayne walks that fine line on that pit every day, and if he ever falls in, he'll be lost, and that may just be the end of Batman, right? So, and who was it? It was I guess it was in that same movie, right? I think it was Harvey Dent. He said, you live long enough to become a hero, or sorry, you live or die and become a hero, or you live long enough to become the villain, right? It's those type of parallels, those types of realities that do come true, because at some point, again, wonderful comics knows all the answers, right? Comics has all the answers, because even in Judge Dredd, Rico, he says the same thing. He says, the innocent are only innocent until they become guilty. Maybe that's why he started killing people, because he started, and what was it, the Minority Report. We can start telling who's actually going to become a criminal before they even become criminals. We can start.
What were they called? They were called precogs or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. So they started. They went back in time. They grabbed them, and Sorry, is that a spoiler?
Not for Minority Report. Not for Minority Report. So I got a couple of questions here. Shay, do you think that Blade would have trouble with the Sinners vampires? I guess it depends which Blade. If you're talking cinematic, I think he'd take them.
Well, he can walk around in the daytime. So I mean, he's just got to find their lair and start like.
I think he could take them, most of them physically. I actually think he would have problems with Rennick. And
Yes,
the reason I say that is Rennick presents himself as very unassuming. When we first see him, he's on the run from the Navajo tribe, and he's already kind of wounded. And when he comes across this couple who just happen to be in the clan, he portrays himself almost like a poor beggar, who's being wrongly persecuted by the indigenous community. And even when he comes across Smoke and Stack in the juke joint, he comes in very wholesome. They just want to come in and play their music. They sit outside, they're patient. He comes across like he's not a threat, even though deep down we all know there's something a little off about this guy. Even when they're singing their Irish jig, everyone outside of Stack is kind of looking at him a little suspicious. Stack's kind of getting down to the music. He's like, oh, these people are all right, And I think he would probably catch Blade off guard. Physically, I think Blade could probably take him or take most of the turn, but I think he would give Blade problem when you do the whole brain versus brute strength.
Right. Another great question. Sorry, there's a comment. My favorite vampire movie is 30 Days of Night. So Shay agrees with me.
Awesome movie.
Andrew says, I'm not really into horror, but if Sinners is what you call a horror film, I'm all in. Oh, it's definitely horror. So you're now an official horror fan. And Andrew's asking Shay, are you only into vampire movies? Speaking of, before we shift, what would be the hierarchy of monsters? Would it be top 3 that are in pop culture right now?
I say right now it's vampires. Vampires will always trumpet. Zombies second. Zombies / infected human.
Yeah, like Last of Us type of thing.
Yeah.
Plant heads or whatever.
Yeah. Mushroom head.
Or what's number 3?
3.
Or what comes in at 3?
Shoot. I want to say maybe aliens?
I was thinking xenomorphs.
Yeah.
But let's see. Do we have any disagreements? Do werewolves get any love?
I was about to say. I was gonna say like
lichens. Do the lichens get any love?
Yeah. Well, that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say that the scariest monsters for me are the ones who are hiding in plain sight. You know what I mean? Those are the ones that really scare the crap out of me, right? Whether they be vampires or werewolves, because they can turn on you on a dime, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that it also depends on your definition of monster, right? Psychopathic killers are also quite good at that, right? Like again, it could be a Hannibal Lecter. He's your friend today, but if you break his moral code, like Dexter, for example, you break his moral code, and you're lunch meat, man. Like you're underwater in the next moment. Like it's just that kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that I think that psychopaths are a type of monster, right? So I think that is definitely for that. And of course, like I said, werewolves and vampires. I think that would be my overall kind of situation right now.
Okay.
Yeah,
we'll see if Alien Earth changes that.
Yeah, prior to Sinners, if we were just talking about popularity right now, I would say it goes zombies first. Because again, you said Walking Dead has been massive for a long time, but also Last of Us is really popular. And then, sort of what Jay would say, I would actually say like serial killers are. Think about the influence of true crime, the wave of true crime documentaries, podcasts. Like people are obsessed with the monster that you kind of know, the monster that's living next door, and then. Although vampires are classic, and you have interviews of vampire popular show, I would almost say that's the supernatural, right? Because you forget we had a whole wave where it was like Insidious and those type of films
Ring.
where there was some type of supernatural being, and that was popular for a good couple of years, right? Like I think vampires have always been around. They kind of come in, go out, but I think vampires will probably bump up now because of Sinners. But over the last couple of years, most people seem to be talking about those three, in my opinion.
And an honorary mention goes to the Viltrumites. Those mofos are scary. Okay, like you don't know what they're gonna do, and they can kill you within the blink of an eye. Just
yeah. I think that goes for any superhero archetype. Yeah. I mean, if Superman was to go rogue, that's the whole reason why.
Those are the Viltrumites. I agree with you. Yeah.
That's the whole reason why Batman creates the superhero initiative, contingencies, right? Like he's got a silver bullet for every superhero he's ever met, right? That was again, like the humans, need to band together because the humans are so weak compared to every other metahuman out there, right? I think that's an absolute fascinating idea. Whether it be Homelander or whether it be the Viltrumites or whether it be any of these psychopaths, right? These people are absolutely have no morals whatsoever. They can take you out in the blink of an eye, and it's all about subjugation to them. It's all about power. It's all about, as long as you bow down to me, you're safe. If you don't bow down to me, well, you'll see, right? But it's amazing that there's only one Homelander. Yeah.
Sorry, again,
I was just gonna say, to your point, it doesn't even have to be about power. It could also just be if you're unstable with that power. Because I don't want to spoil it, but if you think of the Thunderbolts movie, I would argue the last the last act of that film kind of plays like a horror movie. There's a couple of moments where if Marvel really wanted to dig in, you could have had a really terrifying horror film, right? And just the idea of this super powerful being being able to throw everyone into this big collective funhouse of trauma, that's a really horrifying idea if you think about it.
Yeah. Characters like Arcade really come to mind, you know what I mean? And Mojo, right? Characters who can literally just take you out of your comfort zone, throw you into situations where you just need to survive, right? And all for the entertainment of a single being, right?
World.
Yeah. So again, the comics are everything. Comics are ahead of their time, guys. Come on, seriously.
Yeah, for sure.
Ultimate playground.
This one's for Court. The Purge might be the scariest movie because society is heading in that direction.
Possibly. I don't find those movies particularly scary in terms of execution, but I do find the idea chilling. And we're in a very weird state where some of the things that we've witnessed in pop culture that we're kind of like, oh, that would never happen. Now we're like, oh, maybe it might, which is kind of scary.
All bets are off. All bets are off in some cases.
Imagine if in the Star Trek universe, Vulcans just decided to release all of their emotional trauma in one day. The universe would not survive. Okay, 24 hours. The Romulans are dead. The freaking humans are dead. Like everybody's dead.
Yeah,
because they're so logical that when they turn illogical, they can just they'll just wipe everybody out.
Even the Klingons are like, "Whoa, calm down."
Yeah, exactly. You don't know yet. You don't know the giant who just woke up.
Going horror adjacent. There's a reports that Ryan Coogler, getting back to him, he's going to reboot the X-Files. And he's apparently reached out to Gillian Anderson to be involved somehow. And she was on a British show, and she's like, if there's something, call me. But she's not kind of getting her hopes up or whatever. What do you think he would be able to bring to that franchise? That, as far as I'm concerned, I love the X-Files, but man, they kind of run it empty. So it'd be interesting to see what the reboot would be.
We never did talk about cryptids. You know what I mean? Like that's another untapped resource, because I think that's really what X-Files brought to the game, right? Like like the unknown, right? Alien, like we talk about aliens, but we didn't talk. You know, some of the best X-Files films or episodes were the ones you didn't really know what they were trying to get to, and then all of a sudden they sort of explain it to you. Like I really enjoyed the episode where there's a guy at a call center and he knows something that everyone else doesn't know. But again, it's those creatures that are in plain sight, like I keep telling you. You know, shadow people. You know, those types of cryptids. The Slender Man, I guess a lot of the kids are looking at right now, right? Like all these things that just make go bump in the night. You know what I mean? Those are some really crazy ideas. And you know, Pet Cemetery, right? Like just human possession, right? Ghosts, right? All these unsolved mysteries, right? Some really crazy stuff out there.
Right. So Joe, do you think
Is he planning to do it
as a series? I don't know. That's a great question. I think something like that works episodically. Like who knows? Because
There were movies.
Actually, wait a second. Is he involved with Ironheart?
Yeah, he is. He's executive. I think executive producer.
Okay, so maybe X-Files will be, kind of like back on some sort of streaming service or something.
Yeah, and also Isa Wakande that's coming out.
Right. So if he's doing television, then I can see him doing it that way. I don't think like the X-Files is so deep in terms of its lore and what you're trying to say. I don't know if you can do that in an hour and a half and do it justice without having. Well, you know what? If you do it where the story is compelling and it's kind of Sinners-like in terms of like a rich tapestry, and then you've got these two agents trying to figure out stuff, then it can work. It could totally work. It would just be interesting. How would it be different? Like would it be not working out of Washington? Would it be American Horror Story, but with supernatural kind of FBI feels? Would you have agents of different ethnicity delving into the different ethnicities that are in lore that's in the US? Like, it'd be interesting. Would it be international? I have no idea.
How do you not make it feel like a reboot of an older series? Like I feel like a lot of reboots fall into that trap where it's the new thing, but it feels almost like it, or it feels exactly like it.
I'll give you a perfect example.
Yeah.
Which was heartbreaking for me when Michael Mann went and did Miami Vice again.
Yeah. What was the point of that?
It felt empty.
Yeah. Because
it didn't have what made the series enjoyable.
Yeah.
So whether it was the music, the pastels, you know, that 80s kind of whatever the magic of the 80s was. And I think the X-Files, you're right. Like there's like, how do you recapture that and not have it kind of fall flat? Because like storytelling has changed a lot, right? Like just watch Black Mirror. And there's some great episodes in Black Mirror
this season. Yes.
You know, so I don't know. How would you do it, Court?
Well, I like the idea that you suggested of having different agents of different ethnicities looking at the cultural history of America and then finding the supernatural in that. And I think that is the best way to do it. Think about, again, going back to Sinners, the dance sequence. There's a lot of richness in that, and what made that sequence so amazing is they're pulling out different cultures, because so many cultures within North America have historical lore, different medicines, different approaches to way of life all throughout society. There's a lot of richness to that. I think for these things to work, we almost have to kind of forget the past, even though that you're using the same name to build off it. Because Miami Vice is a perfect example. I wasn't a fan of that movie, but I know there's a lot of people that love that movie. But a lot of people who love that movie didn't grow up with the show. So
Right.
their Miami Vice is this gritty Colin Firth thing, not the season 1 of the TV show, which was amazing, and it could have been a movie in itself, right? So
Sure.
again, you have to find a different way to do it, even if you have like the same quote unquote name. Because if you think about the X-Files, there's been a lot of other shows that kind of birthed out of it. I was trying to think of the one with Joshua Jackson, which also had kind of a sci-fi.
Fringe. Fringe was
element.
amazing.
Fringe. Yeah, like
Loved
that was
Fringe.
another one that
Fringe was great.
Fringe worked because you had the X-Files to kind of usher people in, right? So there's a lot of different ways to do it. I think we just need to figure out how to not fall in the trap of doing what was done 2 decades ago. That's what I think would work. And one last thing I'll say, that just because I saw it in the comments, there was a person that said that we need a gargoyle movie just to see a different type of monster movie. And I've always wanted to see a gargoyle movie. I think that would be great because I remember loving that show back in the day. And I think that's something that a lot of younger audiences don't know. And you could kind of do a lot of interesting things with it if you wanted to. And I think that's why I feel Thunderbolts works to a certain extent, because even though you've seen a lot of these characters in different things, audiences aren't really attached to them. And even though we've had like 30 some odd Marvel movies, I find the best ones are the ones where audience go in with the least bit of knowledge or least bit of expectations, because it allows the filmmakers to be more creative.
Guardians.
They don't feel like they have to stick to a particular template, right? So
the Winter Soldier and Thunderbolts share a lot in common, I feel, because they could be completely different movies. They don't have to be superhero movies, right? And I enjoyed the fact that this was about as far removed as a superhero movie could be outside of the superpowers, which weren't really displayed that much. When you look at the film as a whole, if you really think about it, there's like if you had to count in the minutes of how many minutes they actually displayed superpowers, it was probably only about 15 minutes of the entire movie when you really break it down, because really they didn't really do much. You know what I mean? Like, sure, the shields are bulletproof or whatever, right? But outside of that, they really didn't do much superhero stuff. You know what I mean? It was kind of cool, and I enjoyed that. And because it was more of, again, it was actually more of a satire, which you could argue Guardians of the Galaxy was also a satire on superhero films, right? Because it didn't take itself necessarily too seriously, but the twist was in the psychological profiling of the whole film, right? Like, who knew you were going to dive that deep into character development? And I think that's one of its strengths for Thunderbolts. Trying not to spoil it as much as possible, because again, I really am sad that it didn't that it does not have a better showing. Honestly, I think it's one of the better movies Marvel's done in a while. Honestly, in my opinion.
Because I haven't checked any of the numbers. Is it disappointing at the box office?
Well, there's everyone saying it's disappointing, but I think it's almost broken even already. I think in terms of now, people say breaking even is a different.
Is this
scenario.
Marvel disappointing, or is this movie disappointing?
No, it's
Marvel disappointing. Yeah, it's Marvel disappointing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna come
still making a lot of money.
I'm gonna come in from the comic book side. It's the Thunderbolts, man. It's not one of their A-list characters. So it'd been like, if it was on a comic book stand, it would have been like the 5th book. Like, don't get me wrong, there are some Thunderbolt stands out there in the comic book world. But also those Thunderbolts are not these Thunderbolts.
But that's the funny thing about it.
But
that's
even then,
about it.
it's not Spider-Man. It's not Iron Man. And even Iron Man is only now an A-list character. He was a B and C-list character in the 80s, right? And so you got to temper your expectations. There's a reason why Spider-Man and Batman, no matter how bad the movies are, Spider-Man 3 exception, maybe, they will pull money, right? Because of the character. People, it's just name recognition.
Yeah. But even then, the title Thunderbolts is hilarious when you finally get to the final act. It is the funniest thing ever when you really find out why
the asterisks.
Why they call it Thunderbolts is the most funny. Like, honestly, I don't think this is a spoiler. You know,
is it because of Ross?
Oh no, the funniest thing is, and I don't think this is much of a spoiler, but like it's named after a high school soccer team. Yeah, sorry, a grade school soccer team, which I thought was awesome. I thought that was funny as hell. But then when you find out what it's really about, then as a comic book fans, like everybody in the theater just exploded when they found out what it was really about. When I was watching it, and I thought that was hilarious. I really thought it was funny as hell. And again,
I think I'm the only one who hasn't seen it, so I'm gonna.
So I thought you've seen Thunderbolts.
No, I haven't seen Thunderbolts.
It's the reverse of what happened here.
All
Yeah,
right.
I'm a sinner for not seeing Thunderbolts.
That's right.
But it's on my
Okay,
list.
hey.
It's on my list.
Hey, I see what you did there.
Try to go in. Try not to take what we're saying as an influence. Just go in with the least expectation you can.
Mhm.
I'll be honest with you. After this last phase, I have no expectations. So
Yeah.
if it's good,
I will say, and I wrote this in my my Substack review. This is the film that broke this Phase 5 curse.
Yeah.
Because prior to that, we've gotten a lot of duds with Phase 5.
Oh yeah, tons.
Tons of duds. Thank you, Bob Chapek and Disney. That whole regime kind of messed it up, but yeah, this breaks it. It's that
I thought Guardians 3 was good, but it got dark. It got really, really dark. I was like, go. I was like, you're burning a bridge right here, which I guess is fine because now you're in charge of the whole enchilada, right? But I mean, like, wow, that went dark. Like, you know, I'm surprised PETA didn't call anybody. Like, it was that kind of dark. You know, you know what I mean?
Super duper dark.
Well, the thing about this movie with a character like the Sentry, if anyone ever read Siege, right? Like he's dark, man. Like he's not only has the psychological aspect, like the like serious mental illness behind him. And I don't know if they played this up in the film, but like he's supposed to be like one of the first heroes. He's in comic timelines in 616 universe, he's up there with Fantastic Four. He's their Superman. And then he basically erases himself or gets erased from everyone's memory, right? So I don't know if they do that, but definitely when he goes dark, lots of bad stuff happens. So you can tell by the trailers what's happening. But so it'll be very interesting to see, I guess, when I see it, if they lock him away again.
Take that with you into the theater. I think that'll help you.
Okay. Okay. But I think again, and I think this has always been Marvel's strength, casting.
Oh yeah.
So they have always won with casting.
This is true.
So even if the movies are terrible, you enjoy seeing the people on screen.
Yeah.
Right? And Florence Pugh is fantastic.
Oh God. I love
right. She's so if there's anyone that would have you be okay with Scarlett's Black Widow not being part of the MCU anymore, she's perfect.
Sure, she's excellent replacement. And you know what? I love her on-screen innocence. I think that she does that so well. You know what I mean? Her even in this film where she's supposed to be back in society and everything like that, she still has this amazing innocence about her. And what happens to her in this film, I'm not afraid to say it. I choked up a lot. I was like, God dang. Like the stuff that she had to go through in this film, character-wise, was just like it took it above and beyond what the widows were. You know what I mean? It really shows what happens in the Red Room, and it really does give you that sense of these people are damaged. Like every single one of these people are damaged. Like there's like everybody here needs help. Like seriously, like it's that kind of thing. Because at one point they were doing a what was it called? Holy crap! Why am I drawing a blank all of a sudden? Mel Gibson and see, I can't even. Danny Glover. What was sorry?
Lethal Weapon.
Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, Lethal Weapon. At one point, they did a Rene Russo and Mel Gibson scene.
Oh, where these are my bruises. These are
where they're comparing battle scars. Right. At one point, they literally have all the characters on room just literally bantering off. Oh yeah, I'm this, and this is me, this is me, this is me, and they're like, oh, I can match that. This is me, this is me, this is me, and it was hilarious. Okay. And you're literally like, geez, Louise, this is like a battle of who's the most pathetic person in the room. Like it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy, and it really did help you emotionally attach to everybody in that film, which I think is one of the real successes of the movie. I think it really helped to get you in to believing these people. I think that was one of the biggest things.
So I'm going to ask a question because maybe you guys know this or maybe you don't. Are they going to pull anybody from the Thunderbolts into Doomsday?
I think they're pulling a lot of them.
Okay.
I think the end credit scene is actually kind of like, there are two of them, by the way, so you got to stick around to the end. But I think the end credit scene sort of really tells a lot. But outside of that, I think that anything's possible now. You know what I mean? Again, just like anything. And there another really good thing that Marvel's good at is being able to bring worlds together, right? I think that's another thing that they're very good at. Being able to justify why one character is in this situation. Even to the point of you were expecting something else, and then something else completely happened. But it was, I liken Thor to a really good example of that, where they were leading you down one path, but they realized if we could go in this path, this character is the most boring character ever. We need to do something else with him. So they made him into, like, Ragnarok changed everything for Thor. I think I was pretty much done with Thor, and then they made Ragnarok, and I was like, oh crap, Thor's fun.
It becomes this more swashbuckling, Asgardian, as opposed to like this like straight-laced warrior, right?
Yeah. It was the buddy cop movie we never thought we wanted.
Yeah,
right. It was like, Hulk and Thor, which they love doing that, right? And Marvel loves putting Hulk and Thor together, and they did it again.
We're not going to talk about Love and Thunder, though. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, it went up and then it went sort of down, pretty much.
Yeah. I would say I always compare Love and Thunder, and I'm gonna catch some heat for this, but like Love and Thunder to like Batman Returns, where you give the director too much freedom.
Oh, Michael B.
Where it becomes something different.
Wait a second. It's not one of the Schumachers? It's not Batman and Robin?
Well, him too. But like, you know what I mean? Like Batman.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, and on that same train, it was the same thing with Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman Part 1 was incredible.
Yeah,
and then she literally like jumped the shark on Wonder Woman. Like, I don't know what
happened.
So
with problematic. Wonder Woman 2 was so problematic
because Zack Snyder wasn't there.
Man,
it wasn't there.
I'm not even going to get into it, but it's just really problematic. Like so many parts.
So many.
Too many.
That's the way they handle Steve Trevor. Ugh.
Yeah.
That was rough.
That was rough.
It's not good. Not good.
Yeah. It had its moments. It did have its moments. Like generally, there were like the first act was the first. I don't know if you couldn't really call it the entire first act, but the first act I felt like I was back in Themyscira. You know what I mean? I enjoyed the whole first scene. I was like, this is where I want to be. I want to be here at the whole movie. And then they fast forward to 88, and I was to 1980, and I was like,
the thing is, if you have Kristen Wiig in a movie, and it's still. And you can take advantage of her comedic charms and talents and all that kind of stuff, and you're still kind of like, like, what are you doing? And Pedro Pascal, like, you look at the cast, you're like, hey, let's go for it. Max Lord, I think it's Max Lord, right?
Yeah, Maxwell Lord, yeah.
And it's kind of like, because Pascal's in everything, really. Like, there should be like a multiverse of Pedro Pascal.
Yeah.
Isn't he already a multiverse in himself?
Pretty much.
He's in everything. He's the Mandalorian. He's in The Last of Us.
Reed Richards.
He's Reed Richards. The man is literally
Max Lord. You bring in his Narcos character. He's everything, man.
He is in every major universe ever made. I'm waiting for him to show up in DC somewhere. I'm pretty sure DC's the only...
That's Max Lord. He was in Wonder Woman.
Yes. Sorry. I forgot about that. That's right. That's exactly.
Is he the Morgan Freeman or Gene Hackman of our times?
Very possibly, yeah.
Not yet. I think he needs a few more years, because if you think about it, when Morgan and Gene became that version of them, they had done a lot of stuff, right? Like, we forget Gene Hackman had like a run in the 70s where he was doing like the French Connection, The Conversation. I think Pedro needs a little more time, but it's great to see that he's kind of blown up the way he has. It would be nice to see him kind of take a break a little bit. Like I'm hoping after Fantastic Four, we kind of, well, you know, there's a film with Chris Evans and
Yes.
Don Johnson's daughter, whose name I'm forgetting,
Dakota
Dakota.
who's in Madam Web.
Yeah.
Yes, Dakota Johnson. Yes, I think they have a rom-com coming out, but maybe after that we get a little break from Pedro just for a bit.
Can't though. He's in Doomsday.
He's filming Avengers Doomsday. And
Yeah, but that's
possibly
what, another 2 years, right?
Well, they're filming now. So when is it? What is this? 25? Maybe 27 will come out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see.
Or actually next year.
They're gonna film and have the post ready for all those characters and effects.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
VFX guys, I pray for you now. I know they usually have them running pretty ragged to get stuff ready for opening day. Interesting. Speaking of last topic, how do you think the proposed 100% tariffs are going to affect productions like Avengers Doomsday, which is filmed in London? Do you think and how do you think that's going to affect even like indie films, Court? What are your thoughts on that? If it's even possible to implement? I think the idea of tariffs are probably already have the industry shaking. I don't think anyone knows how you actually impose tariffs on productions, because it's not like going to the grocery store or buying a new car where you purchase the item. Like, as you said, they're doing Doomsday in London. Are you taxing them because they've gone over to London? Is it, when it comes to North America, if it's filmed in another country, is it because it's filmed in another country, then you pay extra tariff when it comes in? Like, where does the tariff get applied? Is it applied at the movie theater? Is it applied at the studio level? Like, how do you do it? Like, it's a scary idea because tariffs just seems to be this magical thing that he wants to throw on everything. But logically, how does it work? Even if you, let's say, curb people from coming to Canada to film or go to the UK, you're not going to have enough production space in California and New York. Like, are you building studios in Arkansas? Like, I know you have Tyler Perry's studio in Atlanta that films a lot of stuff, but when it comes to indie, people will be making indie films regardless. Like, I don't know where the money gets applied, because every production has a particular budget already, whether it be they're getting money from the studio or government grants. So I don't know where these magical tariffs will be applied, and how does it impact the consumer? And then also, the last thing I'll question is, does that also go for productions that are miniseries or television series, right? Because there's a lot of stuff that we watch on streaming services, Star Wars shows, Marvel shows, Netflix series that are filmed other places. I just watched Adolescence. That thing's done in the UK. It's a big hit for Netflix. So, like, do you charge Netflix more? Do you raise our Netflix fees so that we could pay for the tariff so that they could import? So, like, it doesn't make any sense. But I do think just announcing it and the unpredictable nature of it has the industry talking and a lot of people nervous.
But then again, when does anything that this guy does make any sense? Like, I feel like this is, I don't know, I might be wrong, but I feel like this is a big bluff, and he's gonna end up holding off on this whole thing like he did with the other tariffs.
I tend to agree with Joe. I think that a lot of the things he does is bluster, just to get people shocked. And I think that because people get shocked, they panic, and oftentimes they make hasty decisions and deals. And I think that's probably what, in many cases, that's somewhat the goal. Having said that, though, I think I can see where. So just because we're Canadian, and this is something that we should start recognizing a lot. Every time you watch a Marvel film, you're always going to see, like 9 times out of 10, you see Ontario, you see BC, you see Quebec, and you start scratching your head like, why the hell are we seeing all these Canadian provinces at the end of films? The reality is that many of those things are tax credits based on the fact that they film here, right?
Or they do the VFX, because the VFX is in Vancouver or Montreal.
So all of a sudden, now you start thinking to yourself, well, why would that, like, where would the tariff come from that? Well, guess what? If you're gonna tariff all the special effects that were done in that film, that means that a good majority of it came from Canada, right? So that means that there's going to be a big, huge tariff on that, right? And that's probably what they're looking at. They probably saw all these logos at the end of films and said, why are those names at the end of the productions? Like, they're prominent too. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just a small line; it's actual big, huge logos. And I think what they recognized was that there's really no American cities in there, you know, or American American states. Why is that? So I think that they're just trying to say, no, this should be made in America, and I think that that's probably some ridiculous nationalism or whatever it is they're trying to do.
So the three of you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you can put a tariff on a service. I think it's only a product, right? It's like it's a car part. So the service of doing the VFX isn't necessarily a product; it's a service within the film. So then, how do you account for that? Because Courtney brought up a great point. At what point do the tariffs get levied? Is it when you don't buy DVDs anymore, sell DVDs? Is it the ticket price? So then that screws the theater people, right? So whoever owns the theaters, whether that's AMC or whatever, at what point does it hit the production company or the distributors? Or is it only the distributors that then have to face it?
But could you argue that once you put something on cellulite, that it is technically a product at that point? Like, can you argue that? Right. Again, I think it's just bluster. I think Joe's right.
It's a great question.
I think that Joe's right. I think that it's all just to shake up the narrative. I think it's all just to get people to the table to talk. I think that what they want to do is get people into the same rooms and say, like, we need to be able to, like, the Hollywood machine in itself needs to move. If it doesn't move, like, the whole industry could collapse. Right? You need to support the gaffers. You need to support the the grips. You need to support all these people who you need to support the service people who feed these people. There's just a huge machine, right? That services the overall idea of the movie and film industry, right? And once you stop any part of that machine, much the same way as it's happening right now in China, right? You are literally looking at the collapse of an industry. Right? It's absolutely frightening, and it literally is making people crap their pants right now.
Well, it's affecting. I know it's affecting toys. Like toys,
100%.
Everyone's
about 145. I just literally. Okay, so here's a fun fact. I posted a video this morning. So since you brought it up, Steve.
That's why I brought it up. I saw the 145. So
since you brought it up, I posted a video this morning. And it's literally 145% tariffs, right?
What?
And 145% tariffs on toys. 145% tariffs. All right. Oh, yeah, that's what it is. 145% tariffs. And guess how many comments I've my average comments on any video are average between 25 to 40. Guess how many comments I've gotten on this video in the last 16 hours?
10 times as much.
Yes, 235 comments right now.
Yeah.
Right? And it's mostly people arguing with each other. Okay.
Arguing the unknown.
And it's already hit 4,000 views. Okay.
Oh, wow.
The reality is that this will and could possibly collapse the toy industry. There are analysts right now saying that there's not going to be any toys on the shelves for Christmas. That's literally what they're saying. There's not going to be any toys. And people, anecdotally, people are going to argue, oh, but kids don't play with toys. Go screw yourselves. Kids to a certain age group play with toys. Okay, and to a lesser degree, adult collectors collect. Actually, you just got to look behind me. But you know, like this is the nature of the beast now, right? And this figure right here, right? What's it called? Ezra Bridger from Rebels, right?
Yes.
If this was manufactured today, right now, right before, like as it's if it's going to put it's so this figure back, you know, once upon a time, this was 35 no sorry $25 Canadian, right? Once upon a time, like incredible to think that now, right? Today it's $35, almost $40 right now without tariffs. If this was to go to market right now, more than likely it would hit closer to $65 with tariffs right now. That's staggering.
So what would a play set or a vehicle cost? Like imagine that GI Joe destroyer.
Well, Serpentor, like okay, so we got Serpentor with his air chariot, right? So this was Canadian. It was $65. I believe it was that close to $70, right? Probably today it would probably be closer to 80, and then with the tariffs it would be about 110, maybe $120, right? So you're looking at a massive increase, right? It's just ridiculous.
So
right?
so then flip that back to film. Ticket prices will go up.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
If you're in the theater, your popcorn is going to go through the roof because you gotta get
popcorn's already
kind of.
Popcorn is dirt cheap.
Well, I don't eat the popcorn, so I don't know. So anyone who goes to the movie with me, you get the whole. Courtney knows you get the whole bucket because I'm good. But that means everything will go up.
Oh yeah.
Much less the budgets. And then I was even just thinking something as simple as how do you make a documentary? Because tons of documentaries are in another part of the world. They're not made in the States.
But I thought he said the film industry, which is technically not. You know, there's a gray area. There's always a gray area with these things. You know, I don't know if he mentioned if it was like what Courtney said. I'm not sure if he mentioned if it was television or if it was documentaries or docudramas. I think he literally meant the movie industry.
But if you might be right, but if I misheard, I may have misheard or misread this. I think it was the head of Netflix is like, we won't need theaters pretty soon. Their goal is to have everything on television or streaming.
I think that all streaming companies are looking, even Disney to a certain degree. They tried it, right? During the pandemic, that was an effort, an actual dedicated effort that all the movie companies were at least attempting, and theater companies were losing their minds. Right, I think there was even almost a class action lawsuit that was about to be enacted.
Oh, with the Scarlett Johansson. And,
yes, that was a huge.
Yeah,
that's the one I remember, Joe. It was watching Black Widow at home.
Massive.
Yeah,
right. Because she came back and literally sued the ass off of them because she was guaranteed. Like she said, you're not going to take this to theaters. She said, well, no, we're in a pandemic. He's like, screw that.
It's breach of contract.
Like, that's what she sued them on. Yeah. And she's never going to be in another Disney film ever, right? So I mean, that's how that worked out, right? But it's look, what's happening right now, this administration is literally jeopardizing everything they're hoping to create, right, by doing the things that they're doing. There's a plan in place, and like I don't think one thing I will say about Trump, he's not stupid. He's got a plan. He definitely has a plan. Whether it's working or not is a completely different story. But he has a plan, and he's definitely enacting on it. How long that lasts, we'll see. I will say this. I'll go on to say this. It better start bearing fruit really soon, because if it doesn't, things are going to go really badly really quickly, if they haven't already. So we'll see just what happens, because this plan, it's not, in my eyes anyway. Again, we're the outside looking in, right? At the end of the day. Because we don't know what actually goes on in there, but at least for Canadians right now, we don't know what the hell's going on, right? So we're gonna find out in the next couple of months what is going to happen. I don't even know. I'm scared for the future right now.
From what I'm gathering, sorry to cut you off, but with what I'm gathering right now, this seems more like a like a destroy and rebuild type of thing that he's trying to pull.
Sure.
Destroy the economy by placing all these tariffs, and then rebuild whatever he needs to rebuild. But it's just stupid. It's just a stupid way to go about it. Like, it's like we just said, how do you tariff the film industry when you yourself, it's something that you might benefit from. He might benefit from it, I guess. I don't know.
I think that there is a large portion of protectionism in this, right? I think there is. I think that the message that he's been putting out there, it's not like it doesn't make sense. Like, if you really dig deep into what he's saying, it's if you really look at it, right? If you really break it down, the United States does not actually tariff many countries with products coming in, right? If you really were to take a look at it, right? Whereas if we receive anything dairy related from any other country, it's tariffed to high heaven, right? And this is under the idea that we're protecting our dairy industry, right? And that's the way tariffs work, right? That's how that system works. But to reverse that concept on everybody as quickly as it's being enacted right now, right? Saying, oh, you guys are doing this, well, we're going to do it to you too, right? It has thrown the entire world into chaos, because for the last 100 years or wherever it is, that's always been the case. Like, everybody else is tariffing things that are coming into their countries, but the United States basically, oh no, bring our stuff. We like to buy stuff from you guys. Just bring it in, right? And that's, unfortunately, if that's the type of protectionism that they're hoping to achieve, and it's easy to blame just one. I'll put it this way: it is really easy to blame just one person. But let's be honest, it's not with just one person who's enforcing this kind of idea, right? There are a lot of other people who are behind the scenes doing that, like following that trend, right? So it's always easy just to say, oh yeah, it's Trump. But you know what? There are a lot of other factors that are involved. You can't
Trump's
just
the face of it.
It's fine, but that's the point. If there's going to be a fall guy, it's going to be Trump, right? But the whole machine itself doesn't work on just one man. Like, this is like a party. Like, it's a party thing. It's a political thing, and really, I'm tired of talking about it. Like unfortunately, we have, like, here in Canada especially, we have our own problems, and we got a lot of them. So you know what, we got to start protecting ourselves. There's one thing I'll take away from whatever it is going on and over there. We have to start protecting ourselves. I think that's really what it boils down to.
Agreed. Well, with that, gentlemen,
I agree that we have to.
Go ahead, Court.
Sorry, I was just going to say real quickly. I agree that every country should kind of protect their own industry, their people's livelihoods. But you cannot have a global economy that was set up to be a global economy primarily because of American influence, and then just kind of pull the rug on things. Like, to your point, they were letting a lot of stuff in because the factories that they're making, the building, they're using a lot of cheaper equipment that they're pulling from other countries. So they're building their buildings, their financial wealth by outsourcing work, all of this stuff. Like, everything was global, and now global is bad. We need to do everything in-house, make our movies in-house, make our car factories in-house. And it's like, but where are you going to get all the materials for all that? Yes, you might be able to have enough studios, let's say, in America to do your filming and TV shows, but your factories and stuff, it's going to take about 5 years to build one car factory. Where are you going to get the materials from? Because a lot of those materials you get from overseas for real cheap, right? Now you have to basically grow them in-house, build them in-house. That's going to raise costs of everything. Like, I understand the sentiment, and yes, I completely agree. Especially here in Canada, we have issues that we need to address, and we need to build our country to be more self-sufficient. We've for too long relied on the American structure. I get that, and I agree with that. I just think the speed at which everything is happening is a little ridiculous because it's not being thought out properly. Like, as we were just discussing, how do you tariff a movie? No one has ever thought about that. And to go through the semantics, the mathematical aspects, that's going to take a lot of thought, not just like a tweet that goes out and everyone starts to scramble.
it is pure lunacy, and I think that that's the point. In a lot of ways, I think that that's exactly what they're doing, right? And again, we can put everything on Trump if we want, right? Again, but it's not just Trump. Trust me, there's a lot of other players in behind the scenes. But the reality is, I truly believe what Joe's saying. This is a lot of shock and awe, and why?
Yeah.
Because I think that they want them to come to the fucking table. Pardon my expressions, but I think that that's really what they just want to get everybody on the table, and they want a quick negotiation as quickly as possible, whatever it actually ends up being, right? And I think that in this short term, there's going to be a lot of pain. Like a lot of companies are dropping left, right, and center. The little guy is the one that's suffering the most. You know, how many like we're like, okay, let's just talk about Canada really quick, right? Because I know we're going to sign off really quick. But look at what's happening in Canada. GameStop gone.
Yeah,
GameStop is gone. Toys R Us dropping like flies.
Actually,
right? Sorry, go ahead, Joe. Go ahead.
Actually, it was just reported that GameStop was purchased by Montreal.
Yes.
By a company in Montreal,
one of the co-owners of McFarlane Toys.
Yeah,
correct. But that's part of the idea of a shakeup, right? The whole thing was shaken up so quickly that either somebody came in and bought it at a cheap price and saved that industry, or it would have gone, maybe back south, and just become GameStop proper, and we would lose GameStop, right? So there's cause and effect for everything, but it's disrupting the Canadian retail industry so badly. We just lost the Bay. 130-year-old freaking company.
Yeah.
It's older than freaking Canada. Sorry, 200-year-old company. It's older than Canada. The Hudson's Bay Company has existed before Canada was a country.
Trading goods back in the day.
And now it's gone.
Right?
They built their entire empire on a beaver.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But they also did sell the Bay to an American company a while ago. It's one of those things where you made a great point about cause and effect. So the Bay is owned by an American company. Tim Hortons, which is proudly Canadian, is owned by an American company.
Yeah,
right. So a lot of the decisions are because of globalization, what have you. GameStop is a perfect example of what ruined GameStop was not that people don't play video games. It's you can download games now straight to your console.
True.
You don't need to go and pay the $79 for a used game or the $59 for a previously used game, or you can just go to whatever store, the Xbox store, the PlayStation store, download that same game for $13.99 and you have it instantly, right? Like, so there's a lot of things that change the way how we consume goods, but a lot of those systems didn't change with it. And with the whole Canada-US North American trade deal, the deal that we have now is the deal that the Trump administration previously negotiated. They literally retooled this deal 4 years ago, and now 100 days in, they're like, we're getting robbed by this thing, and this was a deal that you guys created, that we agreed to, and now even that is right. So who gets the blame, right? Yeah. So it's just like I get it, but I feel like we keep leaving out certain aspects to just the way how our system economic system has always been a global thing, and that's kind of what hurt us. We haven't protected our own. There's
also this. We're also forgetting that labor is huge. If you want to bring everything back to America, you got to pay your workers in American dollars, and that's going to raise the price of the product too. There's a reason why the companies moved a lot of their workforce overseas, because you could pay them less. We see it in comics all the time that they can't afford to pay a North American artist or writer, so you go overseas, right? They can charge less. Even if they charge in US, they're not going to charge $300 a page, right? Because their standard of living is different because of whatever currency is that they're dealing with in their own country. So once you get out of paying someone in Nebraska or in New York or San Francisco or Toronto, even Toronto, You got the exchange rate, so you make 30 cents on the dollar. That's great if you're a Canadian artist. Imagine if you're in Greece or if you're in the Philippines. And that's why a lot of the artists are like South American, not only because some of them are absolutely fantastic, but economically it makes sense, right? I can't remember what the calculation was, but it would like your iPhone, if it was built in America, would cost like, 20 grand or something like that.
Yeah. No, there's always going to be the economies of scale at the end of the day, right? Like our economies are based on the fact that our standards of living are much higher, right? You could always argue that unions are put in place to protect workers, right? There's again this machine, right, that we have created here in North America is in place because over the years we have been moving much of our manufacturing over to the other countries, which are just again much more affordable, easier on the mass market, right? And that's what created this global this global network of trade, right? But the thing is that whatever's happening now, it's and whatever end goal there is, I think that regardless of who you blame or whatever person is in charge or whoever does it, at the end of the day, I agree with Courtney. I agree with Joe. It's too fast, right? You're not actually engaging in a conversation, because what happens is, and this is probably part of the reason why they're doing it. Again, I'm just spitballing here. I don't even know. I've got no idea. I don't even have the skin in the game, but I do have the skin in the game because now we are actually directly affected by what's happening right now as a global part of this community, right? But if I had to guess, I would say that the reason they're doing it so quickly is because they want people to come to the table and negotiate quickly and seriously, because this is a shock to the system, which is like, holy crap, like this is ridiculous. Like this is insanity. And because it's literally insane, you have to deal with the insanity. So you come to the table really serious, and that's what. But it's wrong. The way this is being done, it's holding a gun to the world and hoping that the resolution will be the best outcome for everybody. That's not the way to do it, right? You need to engage, and it takes a long time. This is what politics is all about: taking time, right? This shotgun approach, somebody's going to get the short end of the stick. And the thing is that right now it's the rest of the world, right? And I don't think America's going to come out of this looking pretty either. This is going to be a moment in our history, and it doesn't matter. We're all losers. Don't even think twice about this. We're all losers in this game, right? Nobody's going to win this
one, unless you have enough money to buy the dip.
But this is the key, right? And at the end of the day, those without a lot of money are the ones who are suffering the most.
True. Oh, they always get run over. Absolutely.
So as like the 1%ers, great, they're going to get richer, right? What about the rest of us, right? We're just trying to live our lives, right? So at the end of the day, we do got to look at something more importantly, right? Like, I can't eat a toy. You know what I mean? It's a luxury item. Toys are luxury items. Comics are luxury items. Television are luxury items. All these things, they are not going to sustain your life. They're to enrich your life. That's what they're for. They're there for your entertainment, right? But food is actually the most expensive it's ever been, as far as from what I can remember. I went to McDonald's today, right, with a friend, and we just ordered 2 double Big Macs. It cost us $55 for 2 combos and 10 nuggets. That's not an exaggeration. I didn't even tip the guy. Because you don't tip McDonald's. What was that?
That's a not happy meal. That's crazy.
It tasted good. but yes,
$55.
Believe it or not, a double quarter pounder. So 2 double quarter pounder combos and some nuggets cost $55.
Craziness.
Was this like going to McDonald's? Was this going to McDonald's, or was this like DoorDash?
No, this was us in the parking lot. We were literally like starving. We didn't even sit down. Like we didn't even occupy space. We just spent money.
I'm just trying to think of like $55 at McDonald's.
Yeah.
Damn.
McDonald's has actually gone on record saying we need to figure something else because people have stopped coming to McDonald's. Why? Because it's no longer fast food. It is a luxury experience now. McDonald's has become a luxury experience.
Interesting.
That is fascinating. You know where you need to. Okay, you know how a cheap date was going to McDonald's? Nah, cheap dates are Costco. You got to go to Costco now. Get your $3.99 hot dog and drink. Like that is now considered the cheap date. Okay, you're splurging when you go to McDonald's now. Like so you want to go to a fancy place that serves really expensive food? Hey, let's hell to McDonald's.
Courtney, I know that you obviously get a lot of press passes in when you're doing your movie going. What's the cheap date? The cheap day. Remember Tuesday? Was it Tuesday that was reduced prices? What is it now?
I think
Do you know what the price is on a reduced day?
Tuesday, but I don't know what the reduced price is. All I know is going to the movies now is ridiculously expensive. So like how you talked about the $55 at McDonald's, that's essentially two large popcorns, 2 drinks, and maybe a candy, right? Like that. When we take the kids to see a film, if there's like 4 of us, usually I'll pay for one kid and my wife will pay for the other, right? And it's still a lot of money, right? And I'm using my Steam points and whatever coupons because it's so expensive. Like the actual theater ticket, depending on what you're seeing, is going to be anywhere from $15 to $20 some odd dollars just to get in. And then you think about the snacks, or as you said earlier, Jay, popcorn is really cheap, but in the movie theaters, that's where they make a lot of their money on concessions. So those combos the prices are jacked up, right? So it's a really expensive outing. You can't really do a dinner and a movie anymore. Now it's like, well, the dinner, whatever you eat at the movie theater, that is your dinner, right?
Right, especially if you're doing VIP.
Skittles, man.
$25. I know this because I was there last weekend watching Thunderbolts. $25 for a small popcorn, 2 drinks, and 2 chocolate, 2 little chocolate thingies. That's not even. There's no protein in that. That's all junk.
Somewhere Orville Redenbacher is turning over in his grave.
No, he's celebrating. What are you talking about?
$25 for popcorn. Wow.
He's like, it happened. Popcorn is popcorn is a luxury item. Freaking incredible.
Well, something's gonna have to change, or else a lot of the stuff that we love, the industries that we love, the things that, like you said, they are luxury items, but they kind of allow you to get through the day.
They are quality of life.
They're gonna run into roadblocks if not cease. Only a few people will be able to enjoy them.
Yeah, it's look, we as human beings are like, we've evolved to the point where we don't need to break our backs every day, right? This is where we're at now, and entertainment is a big part of our lives, right? So I'm not saying that we don't need these things. We do need these things, right? But I am also saying that there are other things that are a lot more important, like housing. Like the housing industry in Canada is just effed up, right? I'm looking for a home now. I'm looking to rent someplace right now, and the smallest amount of rent for a tiny little apartment is upwards of $2,500 to $3,000
a month
for a shoebox.
Yeah,
for a shoebox,
and that doesn't include
utilities.
It
doesn't include anything. It like literally, it's in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. Right, that's the best deal you can get.
I've been looking forever as a freelancer and nothing. And I as a freelancer, I can't even get it. That's what's messed up. Before you should be able to get your cheap $800 a month apartment easily, but now there's so much you got to do.
No,
you got to make
and home ownership is impossible.
No
one can know. Like if you were a first time home buyer, good luck. Good freaking luck. Anybody who's becoming, who's getting into the workforce right now, you are just give up. Just go back to your mom's apartment, your mom's basement, because That's where you're going to be for a while. Right?
Teams Mom's basement. Yeah.
Speaking of horror, because this is kind of the reality that we're talking about. Getting back to what we're, kind of touching upon earlier, it's the real life stuff. And so when the escapism isn't even there anymore, or the escapism is too easily mirrored in your everyday experience, then you know that we're on the wrong trajectory, right? Yeah. But with that, we are now into the next day. And so I want to thank Joe and Courtney for coming by the asylum. We had a great time chatting. I want to thank everyone who was in the comment section. Really made the evening. Joe, what can we expect from you moving forward?
Oh man, obviously one half of Heroes of the World. Shout out to Mark Williams. We'll be doing we'll hopefully be doing a lot of events in the city, a lot of comic book store events, hopefully a lot of cultural events. Still working on some comic book projects here and there. I'm actually working on another comic book project within the Hot W Studios world family. Not within Heroes of the World, but it's kind of another IP that I'm starting to develop. So I got that. It's called the Tico. Yeah, those are pretty much it. Heroes of the World and the Tico.
Excellent. And Courtney, what do you have coming up? Or is it just waiting for con and stuff like that?
No, there's always film stuff going on. I just wrote a couple of reviews for POV magazine. We had Hot Doc, which is a documentary film festival, just finished up here, I guess last week. So there's some reviews posted on the POV magazine website. I'm going to be reviewing Mission Impossible soon. I just got the invite for the screening that's coming up soon. And I also have a website that I created called blackcanadianfilm.ca, which is just like a resource database where you could find films from by Black filmmakers or films by non-Black filmmakers that feature predominantly Black cast or talk about the Black Canadian experience. So I'm constantly updating that as well.
All right, perfect. Well, once again, I want to thank everyone, and I think Frankie Rivera is also going to thank us. Thanks, fellas. Awesome stream. Good night, everyone. Stay blessed and be safe. And thank you, and the same to you and everyone else that tuned in on all the platforms, and also were kind enough to leave some comments. Jay, any last words?
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Of course, guys, you are always awesome to hang out with you guys. Courtney, Joe, thank you again for coming in. It has been an amazing, riveting conversation with both of you. I know it got a little bit weird at the end, but you know what? This is the time we're living in right now, and as I said earlier, and I do mean this, right? We have to look after our own interests in this country. Mm-hmm. We are proudly Canadian here. And the landscape is changing on an ever evolving basis, and unfortunately, we all have to roll with the punches right now. So stand together, stay strong. You know what I mean. This is really what it means to be, a Canadian, and this is where we are. Also, I want to congratulate Steve again for his work on Atrium and everything that's happening with that amazing publication. Huge shout out.
Wait. Go vote for us for the Ringos. We're eligible for the Ringos, so we'd love it if you guys can support us. Just go in there and vote for the artists and the writers and the amazing team that we had behind the entire series. So thank you. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, absolutely. And on a separate note, I'm working on my own project right now with El Dragoon, which is a fun little project. It's a luchador comic book, which is going to be a lot of fun. Myself and my good friend Danny Green are working on some amazing new projects with. It's kind of like a mix between Dragon Ball and luchador wrestling, and it's so much fun. We're gonna have a Kickstarter hopefully in October, and we're visiting a lot of different comic conventions and shows, much the same way Steve and Vaughn have done for their project, and we really are excited about this. It's a Dream Comp project that's coming up very, very soon. And you guys can follow us on @LDragoon_. We have some really great characters. Our Our team is international. We have our artist Sebastian Navas, who's in South America, and we're doing a lot of great work with so many different talented artists. And our writer is Gilly Writes Comics. He's doing some really great stuff. And our good friend Steve Bino, he actually contributed to many of the character designs and a lot of the ideas that are coming out with this in the early stage of development when we were doing much. When we were doing much of the overall work with this. So yeah, a lot of great things that are coming out of this camp. And I want to thank Steve and everybody who helped to support the project and everything that was going forward with this. Yeah, we're really excited about this, and I hope you guys will support the project when we launch. And we're going to be doing a lot more stuff here on Comix Asylum, a lot more interviews, a lot more reviews on comic books themselves, indie books, indie artists and basically content creators. It's going to be a great segments that we're working on, Steve, and I think that things are just going to move on forward from here. So it's going to be great. Please, guys, subscribe to Comix Asylum on YouTube and of course on all our social medias. Follow us on comixasylum.com and make sure that you guys tune in because we got a lot more things on the pipeline. So very excited to have you guys on board.
All right, Jay, make sure you check out Mega J Retro on YouTube. Give him your full support. And make sure to check out Joe's stuff. You head over to Courtney's links, and we'll put those in the description on YouTube. That's so you guys can check them out after you guys watch the stream. So thanks again for everything. Have a great night, and everyone stay safe. Peace out.
Thank you, guys.